So you remember when I had a car that was returned over 5 hours late? Well, we officially had one that doubled, and it took 10 hours to get this car returned to us. And today I'm going to talk to you about this car right here and what happened that ultimately led to us getting the car back. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another video. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing to our channel and give this video a like. If you like videos like this, as we follow the progress of our business as well as us trying to give you some of the tools that you need if you decide to run a business yourself, similar to what we're doing. Now, as I mentioned, our Chevy Spark was once due to be returned in the afternoon, and it did not get returned on time. It took over 10 hours for us to get this car back. So I want to take you a little bit through the process and kind of show you some of the steps that we did from the time that we first reported the return being late to finally getting the car back in our hands and everything that transpired in between. So I'll give you a little bit of the lead up that led into us being in a parking lot at night picking up this car. So basically it was just a standard return process. Car was supposed to have been returned at 2 o'clock and it had not been. So we were waiting until the half-hour mark, which is what Turo's Terms of Service asks you to do, is wait until half hour after the reservation ends for you to report the late return. We did report the late return at 2:30. Meanwhile, I was able to track the car since there was already tracking in the vehicle that's put in there from the factory. So I was able to see that the car wasn't very far away. I figured just an honest mistake from the renter. I'm going to give it a little bit of time. I know that Turo will reach out to them and ask them to return the vehicle, and we'll kind of just wait and see what happens. Meanwhile, it was after 8 o'clock at this point, and I was messaging the renter trying to see if they had any intentions on returning the vehicle, especially because it was starting to get late. I do have a family. I want to be able to plan out what I'm supposed to be doing if I'm going to be up in the middle of the night driving this car back home, or what was going to be the situation. When I hadn't heard back from the renter, I sent them a text message and sent them a Turo message. I ended up calling Turo customer support. Big props to them. They were very helpful in helping me get this car back. They reached out to the renter via phone and explained to them that they needed to return the vehicle immediately. Another solution that I offered them was they can extend the trip. I didn't care. The renter was under the impression that the car was supposed to have been returned the next day. Therefore, they didn't look at any of the messages. I don't know how much truth there is to that, but I always try to give people the benefit of the doubt. So I explained to Turo support I was willing to extend the rental by one more day if they wanted to go ahead and pay for it. So they basically presented those solutions to the renter. It was either extend the trip by one more day or they needed to return the vehicle immediately. The renter indicated that they were going to extend the rental, which they never did. So they returned the vehicle at 12 o'clock at night. And so we're going to rewind back some of the footage to 12 a.m. roughly when I was in the parking lot waiting for the car to be returned. So through the windshield, there it is right there. And we are just waiting on it to finally get dropped off. So we're not far away from the drop-off location. I'm getting gas in my car, but we'll have to keep on following and seeing when it finally goes to its location. Looks like it's just gotten started up, and maybe they're cleaning out the car, so we will see what transpired. All right. These are the joys of what you get to deal with when you are returning a vehicle. Sitting here and waiting for a car to get returned. And we've officially broken our previous record of a 5-hour late return. This one is now at, we are eclipsing 8 hours. Actually 10 hours since this vehicle was supposed to be returned. So I have no idea what state the car's in. I still have to contact Turo support and explain to them that the car's been returned instead of extending the trip, which tells me that, you know, we just didn't want to pay the extra money. When they find out how much it's going to cost to have the vehicle for 10 hours longer than they're supposed to, they may wish that they just kept it until tomorrow. But again, as I said, you know, more than willing to work with these people, more than willing to work with renters on a regular basis if I have to, but, you know, people make their decisions and you have to live with them, and it is what it is. I'm recording this video in the dark, but I'm just going to tell you that when you're in situations like this, you need to be hyper aware of your surroundings, and that's exactly why I'm not looking at the camera while I record this, because I want to make sure that I am at a safe distance, that nobody views me as a threat. You never know what people could be carrying on them, what their intentions are. I'm not saying that, you know, somebody returning a car 10 hours late is automatically going to be somebody that's carrying a gun and willing to steal a vehicle. But you definitely have to be aware of your surroundings, especially at night, especially when you're dealing with situations like this. So, you know, it's not the most ideal having to, you know, go through this experience. I will say this is usually very rare for this to actually happen. Again, as I mentioned, stay calm. Don't get too rash. Don't be overconfident. My asset sitting right on the other side of the parking lot. But do I want to risk my life to go and grab an asset of mine? As many say, cars are replaceable, people are not. So I would much rather watch this from afar. I'm going to watch the car that picked up the person leave and make sure that it is completely out of the area and not coming back. And I will then at that point go to the car. So yeah, the car, they may be leaving, but that does not give me the go ahead to just run out and go towards the car. Even if the car that they're driving in is sitting at the light waiting to turn left, I will definitely be waiting until the car's gone. It is officially driving away out of the parking lot, and we will continue to wait. Okay, so basically to summarize what took place here, this car was rented, basically supposed to have been returned at 2 p.m. on Monday afternoon. It is now Tuesday. What happened was the guest claimed that they did not know that the return time was supposed to be today. I had messaged the guest, I had texted the guest, I had tried to do multiple things to try to get them to realize that this was the actual date that it needed to be returned, and so this way they can go ahead and return the car. That obviously did not happen. We went several hours without hearing from the guest. Finally, around 10 o'clock, I decided I wanted to take action, because while I was able to see the tracking on the car, if there were any ill intentions, I wanted to make sure that the car was still able to be recovered. So I contacted Turo support. I explained to them the situation regarding the car and letting them know that the car was still in possession of the renter and that I really wanted to take action, so I wasn't sure whether I should contact the authorities or if Turo wanted to go ahead and take this on their own. Turo contacted the customer. I actually was willing to extend the trip, even though we were well past the 6-hour window post-reservation, to extend the trip, because maybe the person made an honest mistake and forgot that the trip was ending today and maybe believed it was ending tomorrow. So I gave them the benefit of the doubt, allowed them to extend the trip, and that was the expectation that Turo had set to the renter. At this point, I was continuing to look at the tracking on the car, because this car does have tracking provided through my Chevrolet, so I could actually see where the car was. And initially it was at the what I would have believed to be the person's residence, and then eventually it ended up on another side of town. And by the time it did make it to the other side of town, I kind of had the feeling that the car was going to end up being brought back tonight. So I kind of hung in there, waited to see what was going to happen, if this car was going to get returned. Sure enough, they ended up bringing the car back around midnight. So moral of the story is just keep on staying on top of things. These are your assets. Your life is obviously important, so make sure that you are making decisions that are not rash, and that you are just taking care of yourself and trying to recover your property as safely and peacefully as possible. So basically now you have a little bit of insight into what it takes when you're trying to get a car back. What ended up happening? I contacted Turo support after I brought the vehicle back. I let them know that they needed to change the end of the trip back to 2 o'clock. They did change it to 10 so that they could allow the renter time to go into the app to extend. I called Turo and said, well, since the renter decided to return the car that night, then they needed to pay the late return fees that were associated with the 2 o'clock return. So they went through, changed it to 2 p.m. again, and we ended up receiving a late fee as well as an additional usage fee that basically covered a lot of that extra effort that we had to do in order to get the car back. Now, are you looking for $300, $400 because this car had been gone for 10 hours? No, not necessarily. But considering the condition that the car was in, it actually hadn't been smoked in. There really wasn't any issue with the car. There wasn't any damage when I got it back. It wasn't all too badly trashed compared to some other cars I've had before. I didn't mind the amount that I was given. So the last thing that you really want to ask is, how much did we rate the renter? Or what did we end up rating the renter? I wrestled with this decision because I typically rate a renter 5 stars. Under most circumstances, unless there's going to be some sort of a smoking claim or something that's going to get the guest banned from the platform, I don't even bother rating them at that point because they're going to ultimately get banned from the platform in the first place. I did decide to give this renter 4 stars because the car was not in a terrible condition when I got it back, and the late return was really the only circumstances around this rental that wasn't the most ideal, and it did create a little bit of an inconvenience with having to run around in circles to try to get this car back. And the car was also fragrance bombed, which you can sort of take that with a grain of salt. It did not smell like drugs or anything. It did not smell like weed. So I'm not really sure why the fragrance bomb was placed in the car, but you definitely could tell when you got into it that was placed. So I ran the ozone machine in the car for a very long time to get that smell out. Now, I hope that gave you a little bit of insight into what happens with a late return. There are other circumstances, obviously, where a renter may not return the vehicle, so you do want to prepare yourself for those kinds of situations as well. And if you ever have questions about that, feel free to leave a comment down below. Happy to talk through that with you. Now, that is going to do it for today. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing. We are planning on putting out as much content as we possibly can to help you see the evolution of this business, as well as hopefully giving you some tools in order for you to start up your Turo business if you decide to do it yourself. If you are in the Jacksonville area, please visit us at achurentals.com. We have everything from this little compact car right here to large minivans. In the next episode, we deal with an absolute beast of a detail with our Jeep being returned and find out why it looks like this. Make sure and like this video and subscribe for more.